supporting one another, being part of the team. I think there are very clear skills, characteristics. Central to them is dialogue for Augustine, conversation in which each one learns from one another, not talking at one another, but truly listening. Augustine tells us that he even learned through his letter writing when he responded to his correspondents and wrote books to answer their questions, questions that he didn't have, but questions that needed answering. Knowing his audience through listening was an important part of what he did. He knew his dialogue partners. When he wrote his books, he wrote in a very elegant Latin for the learned and the elite. But when he preached in everyday Latin for the dock workers of Hippo. He gave us an open-mindedness, an active type of listening. In his philosophical dialogues at Cassasiacum, he gives Monica a special place in the discussions of philosophy. Monica, who had no philosophical training and was a woman, not having a place at that table. And he had her as a leader, leading her co-discussants towards wisdom, because in her faith, she had reached wisdom in a better way than all the philosophers. He empowered, he encouraged, he coached. A deacon Deo Gracias wrote to him asking him for a homily that would be able to convert people. Augustine's response was to give him two homilies, a short one and a long one. He made him choose. But he also wrote an introduction in what is called Instructing Beginners in the Faith on how to encourage and empower the faith of the audience, not worry about the words, but know who you're talking to and what their needs are. Augustine had the skill of persuasion. In his work Teaching Christianity, he teaches how to use authentic persuasion rather than the manipulative persuasion he had been taught. His persuasiveness was part of what led the majority of North African Christians who were Donatists, not Catholics, to become his minority brand of Christianity, Catholicism. Also knowing when to change by initiating and by creating new things rather than always reacting was one of his skills. In his confessions, in his soliloquies, in his book, The Reconsiderations, in all of those, he created new genres of literature. I don't think he cared anything particularly about literature and new genres, but he needed new ways of speaking to show people what he meant, to help them understand, to help them become good followers, and then move to good leaders. These skills characteristics are not separate, but in Augustine they are connected in what I would call a reflective practice. That starting with community dialogue, we move into reflecting on what we have learned together, and from what we've learned, we revise, renew, and when necessary, make big changes in the practice that we have. For Augustine, those practices were only important when they led to the truth. That is, the long-term improvement, veritas. For Augustine, truth, meaning, and understanding comes not individually, but through community. If the truth is the object of the aspirations of all human beings, he tells us, it cannot be the exclusive property of any person. The truth cannot be exclusively mine or yours, precisely because it has to be both yours and mine. In a community setting, a leader needs to find solid ground for his or her authority. For Augustine, Faustus the Manichae lost his followers by setting himself up as the truth, while Ambrose gained Augustine as a follower by showing him how to find in truth a foundation for his exercise of power and authority. Finding truth as the foundation for lasting power and authority was crucial in Augustine's preparation for conversion, crucial for his ability to hear tolle lege. When Augustine found truth as the foundation of lasting authority, he had reached the pinnacle of his career. He was the imperial rhetor. That was the lead teacher. Sometimes we talk about it as an endowed chair. But actually, part of his job was that he was supposed to go around Milan giving speeches on how wonderful the emperor was and how everything the emperor was doing was just the best thing. He was a 4th, 5th century spin doctor, a spin doctor for the emperor. But he knew his speeches were lies. He knew he had arrived at his job through lies by not telling the Manichees that he had left them, but he used their connections in order to get the job. He saw his lying as being a seller of words, in Latin, vendor verborum. He saw himself, in that sense, as an entrepreneur of lies who had lost his soul, his health, and his way. In converting, he found his voice and health and a way to lead. It was not in immediate results, but in finding the transcendent, not just eternal life, but that leadership is a pilgrimage, a journey that aids the restless heart in moving forward in fulfilling ways. For Augustine, our everyday transcending in a pilgrimage of search and discovery and learning, he tells us, search in ways by which we can make discoveries and discover in ways by which we can keep on searching. As a planner, a leader needs to aid followers in the search and discovery of planning through the old truism of plan the work, work the plan, but with an Augustinian twist. A leader should always be asking if our strategies and activities are substantial, sustainable. Are they getting us to a place that will position us for the next challenge, to be able to discover in ways that empower followers to keep on searching, to keep on discovering? In his Confessions, Augustine can be seen as a role model of searching and discovering, where he presents his own search and discovery to aid others in learning the reflective thinking on how to differentiate useless searching and useless discoveries from the successful one, presenting how to learn in public from your mistakes. He modeled how to find one's ways in following and how to change and reconsider direction, when to hold them and when to fold them. What enabled Augustine to have this confidence, to lay himself bare and to change? Simply love, caritas. For Augustine, love and caritas is no pretty Hallmark Valentine's Day card. It's hard work. He took great support from St. Paul in Galatians 5:6, where Paul talks about faith working through love. Faith and work unite, but it's love that brings them together. The work of leadership, if we look at Augustine, involves some intrinsic talent, but it involves diligence, working at it, seeing where we need to change, seeing where we need to adjust. It's not building up habits, because Augustine thought habits were a problem because they gave you the same old, same old. Diligence is where you ask questions. The diligent leader for Augustine has humility. He tells us the first step in the search for truth is humility, the second humility, the third humility, and the last one humility. Naturally, that doesn't mean that humility is the only virtue necessary for the discovery and enjoyment of truth, but if the other virtues aren't preceded, accompanied, and followed by humility, pride will find an opening and infiltrate them, and sooner or later finish up destroying good intentions. All other vices are recognized when we are doing wrong, but pride is to be feared even when we're doing right. Test those things which are done in a praiseworthy manner, lest they be spoiled by the desire for praise itself. Humility leads to a love that succeeds, Habits leave us open for pride and a love of praise in our annual evaluations.